I'm doing that. Okay. All right, good afternoon and welcome to the planning board meeting for Wednesday, February 12th. If nobody has any disagreement, I'd like to switch number 4 to the beginning because Mike Shea has another commitment. And I'd like him to walk us through the scheduled revetment process for the Coastal Resource Management Council. So Mike? Assuming nobody has a problem with that?
No.
Okay.
Thank you. Mike Shea, Director of Public Works.
Is your light on, Mike?
Yes, it is.
Very good.
Right there, that light.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I get caught in the grocery store. People say, they don't have their mics turned on. Why don't you say
Right
something?
there.
So I did.
This is basically routine maintenance on the revetment slope that was installed over the old transfer station. This is somewhat expected. This is probably going to be an ongoing issue. When it was originally built, the boulders were put down on the lower area on the shoreline there. What has happened is over the past few years, the backside of the boulders where the slope is eroding, undermining them. So the intention is to build the stone revetment up another 15 feet to prevent the undermining of the slope. Says here, each year as part of the budgetary process, the town sets aside funds for maintaining of the revetment and ultimate relocation of the landfill as required by CRMC. If the shoreline recedes 45 feet in the next 15 years from the time of the completed project in 2019, the town has agreed to relocate the landfill 50 feet landward to restore proper access between south and north ends of the shoreline. So this is probably the first of a few years of building up.
Okay.
Mhm.
Questions for Mike?
How much has it eroded?
In some spots, it's not as much. The southern part of it is probably about 10 to 12 feet, if I remember correctly, and then it goes down in the middle. That's more like 4 or 5 feet, and then at the northern end, it's probably about 8 to 10 feet in that area too.
I'm assuming that the group is doing as much as they can to convince the erosion not to come up behind it. I mean, we knew this was going to happen when we were building it originally. The planning board talked about that a number of years ago. So I guess my question is there anything they can do to prevent additional erosion, or is that just always going to be a factor?
I think to some extent, it's always going to be a factor. What is going to be done is the northern end of it and the southern end of it is going to be extended. So
Okay.
it tends not to get behind it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because what I was concerned about is you extend it out and it'll still go up further more and still come around behind it. So.
Correct. So the northern and the southern end of it will be extended perpendicular to the water.
Okay.
So it cannot get.
Okay, that's what I wanted to.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I asked the question.
I'm not sure I
clearly.
answered it correctly.
But we understood each other. That's
Yes,
what
yes,
counts.
we got it.
Okay, other questions or comments?
Just have a quick question. Go ahead. No, please.
Mike, on the handouts that we got, on the description of the work, number 23, it says there's a walking path along the top slope to
Yes.
support pedestrian lateral access along the shoreline, which we all know and have seen.
Yep.
But this what kind of caught my eye. It says the access must be maintained throughout the construction. It's acceptable to shut down the walkway to support the construction, but during the time of construction, detour on the beach will be provided. You know, so there is access north and south on that, at where it meets the sound.
Yes.
And then I noticed on the map, though, the high water mark that's noted there is dated 2014. Just curious what it would be in 2025. The high water mark. It's on the map C2.
So your question is where will the high water mark?
I'm sure it's moved, and I wondered, is it worth putting the new high water mark
Mm-hmm.
on there. The one that you have here is dated 2024. Just as it relates to continuing to offer public access between that revetment and on the Black Island Sound. Not critical, but just because it's.
Yeah,
Say that you're. gonna
I
continue
do know
to
there
do
is
that.
plenty of room at the moment.
There,
Yeah, without speaking to Jim, the engineer,
Mm,
there would be, I mean, once we get to that point,
mm,
if I remember correctly, there is room to the east of that, where if we had to deviate that
Mhm.
access, we'd be able to.
mhm.
You know, 100 years from now, I don't know
Yeah.
what you can do, but there is still room at this point
Oh,
to,
okay.
to deviate if need be. I don't think we need to do that at this point,
Mhm. Okay.
the path itself.
Right, this is in reference to just a walking path, where the revetment ends, where the stone ends and the sound begins, essentially the beach.
Yes,
And that's still passable at high tide?
yes,
Oh, okay, great.
yes, it is now, yeah.
Thanks, Mike.
All right.
The only question I had was about continuing to build out the revetment to the north. Because as I'm sure you know, there's that wetland right there.
Yes.
Just was wondering what the engineer thought about continuing to push that pinch point almost closer to that wetland.
Mhm.
If it continues to, you continue to build out the hard structure, if it's gonna exacerbate the erosion as it gets closer to that wetland
Mhm.
and connecting and coming back around. I just wondered if you guys had thought about that, if there was a plan for that. Am I making sense there?
Yes, I know, I know what you're talking about.
I just wondered if it was more worthwhile to continue to just build back what is there and allow that natural area to function as opposed, but I'm not an engineer. It was just a thought.
That conversation did not come up with Jim and I.
I just wondered if it was going to continue to erode around that hard structure,
Mhm.
loop into that wetland area and start to erode around the back
Faster because of
faster
the.
because it's a
Mhm.
hardened structure as
Mhm.
opposed to allowing it to continue to function as a natural habitat.
Mhm.
Just a thought in looking at it.
It's something I could certainly bring up to him, what
Yeah,
his
I just
thoughts
wondered
are
what he would think.
on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because if
Um,
we keep going up, it almost would seem to me it would be worthwhile to save up. And if we're gonna rip wrap all the way past that,
I see what you're
to
saying,
protect that.
towards the north,
Yeah,
as opposed to running that wall to the.
right.
yeah.
To that point where it's the closest to
Mhm.
the ocean there.
No. Mhm.
Anyway,
We're putting off the inevitable. It's going to happen, but
Yeah.
I just.
Yeah.
just share it with Jim Jeremy and
It's something I could certainly
something that he
get his thoughts on, yeah.
get his thoughts on it and just bring it to his awareness. I'm
Yeah.
sure he's already aware, but it doesn't hurt.
Mhm.
Have it repeated again.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Anything from the audience? Jen, do we need a motion on this?
Or
I,
you don't have, I mean, it's up to you if you would like to write a letter to CRMC or if you have no comment.
I think my comment would be that we would share with them that we would approve the expansion of the existing state stone revetment system as recommended by the drawings from Jim Jeremiah.
Adding to the
Yes, I think,
letter,
yeah, that just point out that there is some wetlands in the area and that any construction that could be done to protect the wetlands would be greatly appreciated.
In addition,
In
yeah,
addition to,
protect the wetlands in addition to the old
yeah,
landfill.
the whole landfill.
Yeah.
It's because we're still worried, as we have been for the last umpteen million years,
Yeah.
about the washing behind as it comes around. That's,
Yeah.
we've had this conversation before.
Mhm.
So,
so if you're gonna send a letter to CRMC, you might as well make a motion, just. to
okay, That's my motion. Do I have a second? Thank you, Sosha. Any further questions or anything you might want to add to what I stated?
Well,
No? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Okay.
Good. Thank you very much, Mike. Appreciate your coming. Okay, going back to number one, Lewis Gaffett, Plat 6, Lot 3-3, advisory to the zoning board for an application by Thomas Martucci, is that correct? For a special use permit under section 408 for a change in use in an inn.
Thomas Matucci, how are you today on behalf of the Gafford project?
Good, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
All right, explain to us what you're going to do and what you're asking, then I'm sure we'll have some questions. for you.
Sure. So our intent is to apply for a special use permit to convert it to an inn status. We would be staying below the 10 bedrooms, which qualifies for an inn. We did go in front of the historic board to ask for, while the building was originally designed with a full Nantucket dormer up top, it was never built that way. So we asked the HDC if they would have any problem with that. They have approved it with contingent on just the drawings did not call out the trim and the siding and the windows, which would all be in kind with what the building is there already. Our intent is to make it into employee housing. The proposal includes 4 salary people on the top floor, which would be my GM, assistant general manager, head chef, and sous chef. The idea is that they could keep an eye on the building to make sure that everything is in order at all times. The grounds are kept properly. So we were trying to solve for a couple of things. One, I know that there's concern about noise down in that area, so it does, unfortunately, it does eliminate a bar. I make my living in the restaurant and bar business, so it's never good when a bar does go away, but it does solve for some of that noise issue, as well as it solves for some of the employee housing shortage issue. We do expect to have a little extra capacity in the building. I'm up in the air whether I really want to entertain the idea of housing other people's employees in my building. If that was something that you were really high on, I would consider it, but it wouldn't necessarily be my first choice to try to control employees that don't work for me, because it does become difficult at that point. So, but other than that, other than the dormer, changing it from a straight pitched roof to a dormer style, other than that, we intend on making zero changes to the outside of the structure. It would just be mostly internal.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Yeah, I've got some questions for you.
Sure.
All right, so first of all, have you gotten your water allocation?
Nope, but that came up in my, the last, I went to the conservatory meeting, conservancy meeting, and that did come up. So conservation committee, sorry. So I do have a call into Mr. Bruni to ask, what is the difference between a restaurant that obviously consumes a lot of water, washing dishes all the time and bathrooms and things like that versus just a straight inn? I haven't gotten that answer, but the conservancy did pass me with the exception that I do send them a letter just stating that what is the difference in the standard calculation.
Okay.
So that is outstanding.
All right, second question is parking. That became quite an issue when the inn was first built. We want to make sure that you have enough parking. I've noticed that when I've been over there particularly for their Tuesday night tacos, which are delicious, that there are lots of cars parked in the back, which was not set up originally to have that done that way. That has been a concern to some neighbors. And the fire people have not been happy with some of the cars parked as you go up the hill with the
Up on the
fire
slope.
lane.
Yep.
And I
So-
understand why there's not enough parking in the area and people will put their cars wherever they have to. But those are things that we would like to have you take a look at and see what you can do about addressing them.
So we did submit a parking plan. I believe the parking
Yes, you
plan
did.
either calls for 9 or 10 spots. I think 9 off of memory. The only 2 spots that are allowed to be out back is those 2 handicap spots. So there is 2 handicaps up top. My personal policy, and I am fine signing on the dotted line on this, is I'm only allowing my head chef and my general manager to have a car there. Other than that, everyone else has to have a bike or nothing. So I don't plan on having, I'm not allowing them to have cars. It's the whole reason why I'm looking at a property in town. It's 250 yards away from our main business, and there's no reason for them to have a parking, so, or to have a vehicle. So I don't anticipate having any parking issues, and in fact, I am mandating, they're gonna have to sign a weekly lease with me, and in that weekly lease for the employees is that they're not allowed to have a car. So it's just my GM and my head chef, so I only anticipate on having 2 cars there unless someone else is parked illegally on my property. So I plan to solve for the parking up on the fence, and
Okay.
to plan to solve for the parking in the back. And the neighbor, geez, I forget her name. She's such a sweet, thank you very much. Great lady. So she came, she expressed those same concerns, and I told her I'll solve for those issues easily.
Okay,
Yep.
good.
I mean, one thing, you just have to have enough parking, which it appears that you do, to support the use.
Understood.
Not you allow everyone to bring a car or not, and it might be difficult to police the people parking there without like permission.
I understand. Yeah, I mean,
Because of
we're gonna put signs up, that, but it totally makes sense that obviously it still needs to support the use regardless of my internal policy, but I'm just letting you know that I certainly don't plan on having an issue, but
We have to make sure you have enough parking in order to meet the requirements for an N.
totally.
Because if we don't make it for you, then you better believe the next person who shows up is going to let me know about it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yep.
So if I recall, it's one, what is it, 1 car per room, is that correct? For a total of 10? Look it up and just make sure we are correct about that. You're not planning to do anything else outside as far as, except for the dormers?
Correct.
Okay,
I don't have the time or the money, to be honest with you. So, no, I don't plan on doing anything else,
okay,
other than to just clean it up. It's already pretty clean, but just to keep it tidy, a lot of those tables I don't think will be out there and things
Okay.
like that.
all right. And this is questions for my board. One of the requirements for an inn is that it has to, units must have access from an inside lobby. You don't really exactly have a lobby. You do have access for inside. So technically you're probably okay, but I do want to make sure the board is aware of that. So that if anybody has any questions about it, they can ask, direct it to you.
So I do have a little information on that.
Yeah.
Fine, go ahead.
Just
That-
gonna ask that, because you didn't ask for a waiver or anything.
Yep,
from
that-
the
No.
department,
That
so
did
I
come up in
think-
terms of the lobby. This is more in terms of life safety, I assume? Or no?
Well, I went back and got the directions of what requirements are for an inn. And it is, one of the things is that you can't have kitchens, and another is that your access has to be from a lobby. This is how we distinguish you from a hotel or a motel or, whatever.
Understood. So my architect, I ended up using the same architect that designed that building, Frank, Mr. Kaparkowitz. He has that, the zoning, rules.
Okay,
And so, I know that he's planned and has designed that with that in mind. If for some reason I have to call him after this meeting, if he thinks that we need a waiver, then I will certainly apply for that. But as of right now, he hasn't told me that I needed a waiver. That's the first I've heard of it,
Yeah.
but.
Right,
Uh,
so technically you could walk into the building, have a desk / lobby
Mhm.
if need be, and then you can go to all of the rooms from the interior
Then
of the
it's
building.
already,
You don't have to go to, they're not separate.
it's
or-
already designed that
Yeah,
way.
okay.
yeah.
Then it's.
You don't have to go outside like you would for a motel.
No, so now I understand what you're saying. No, so when you walk into Old Island Pub right now.
Yeah,
Where the pool table is, that would be 1 bedroom. Where the bar is, that would be another bedroom. So you walk in, there'd be a hallway there, then the staircase stays
goes
there.
upstairs.
Then you go upstairs, the same exact thing. There's a hallway to get to the 3rd floor and the same exact thing. So then that's probably why it hasn't come up there, because it's already designed that.
As I said, this was sort of directed really to my committee that technically we have to have a lobby, and you're more or less meeting that.
Yeah.
I just wanted to point that out.
Why,
make
well, being
sure.
a small lobby, it would be, once you come in that front door, you don't have to leave the building unless you want to go out
Right.
the fire exits.
Right.
Yep.
So,
And so for parking, it's 1 space per 3 guest rooms plus 1 employee parking space for every 10 rooms. So they need 4 parking spaces and they have more than 4.
You've got probably 9 or 10, plus your 2 handicapped in the
I
back.
believe it's 9. I
I
counted.
counted
It
it.
was the 7 up front and 2 up back for the
Yeah.
2 handicaps. So I
Well,
believe
then
it's
there's,
9.
I believe there's another handicapped one in the front also, if I recall correctly.
Oh, maybe then I missed it.
No, I think they
Did they
moved
do away-
them
Yeah.
to the rear.
Because the ramp is in the
The-
back, so.
Okay, all right.
So for the access, correct.
I remember we had a conversation about putting one in the front so that people could go in on the lower level. And I don't know whether that was ever followed through or not, but it was at one time talked about one in the front and two in the back.
I certainly could leave it there if
I,
you wanted.
as I said, you're meeting the requirements for the parking and the requirements of 10 rooms or less, and you've got yourself a lobby. So the last thing I have on my question is the kitchens. You know, there are no kitchens allowed in the rooms, but I don't know what the regulation is about how many kitchens you could have within the inn. Right now you're showing 2, and I'm not sure whether you're allowed the second one or not, and I need to have Jen check on that.
So the first one, so there is something in the special use permit about having a certain portion of your first floor being commercial. But the front of it's supposed to be commercial, not the back. And so I was attempting to leave what would be call it a cold prep kitchen with no cooking, because there really is they don't do any gas. They do everything through induction heat and crock pots downstairs in that first floor. So I did intend on trying to leave that as a prep kitchen. But if you didn't want it there, I could easily convert it to a laundry room or something like that. The only kitchen that is going to have anything hot was I was planning on taking their existing kitchen, which does have an exhaust hood tied to it. And I was going to make it like a cafeteria / mess hall. Now, knowing that all of these employees work at a restaurant, they really should not be coming back home looking to cook a full meal. But I did want to offer like something very small under the hood for a stove and then a fridge kind of thing, just for them to keep drinks or to reheat like leftovers or something like that. But so I really plan on just using the second floor kitchen that truly has gas and everything hooked up to it for the kitchen itself. The bottom kitchen as a prep kitchen, it can go away, it can stay. I'm completely flexible.
Um,
Meals for guests may be provided, may or may not be provided. Can have individual kitchens.
In the room.
in the rooms.
Doesn't say anything about 1 or 2 kitchens.
Okay, I just,
Hey,
Hey, Jen, it's Karen. Could I
Sorry.
just, you speak a little closer to the mic?
Yeah, I didn't have my light on, sorry about that.
Thanks.
But I think Karen could probably.
I think I would ask
Unless
Karen to
not
check
you
this,
have
that's
two-
our lawyer,
two
um,
kitchens.
to check and make sure whether or not, certainly one kitchen is, I believe is okay. Have them check and research whether or not the second kitchen is all right.
I would prefer it goes away. I would prefer to make it just central laundry with like.
Well, that's fine with,
Coin.
you have no
operated
problem with
sinks.
central laundry.
So if that's okay, I just thought that maybe you guys would want it down there to satisfy the commercial use portion of the building, but if you don't want it there, I'm fine with it
Yeah, I
going away.
think now that you're changing the use of the building, it was commercial residential. And now it's an inn, so it's up, I mean, we can,
I can use it, or I have plenty of space in the thing and I can make it go away. So I'm completely flexible to whatever you guys want.
well, I think Karen could.
I think that's a question we need to refer to the lawyers.
Yeah,
And
so I think I can shed some light on this that might help. So this is just on for an advisory back to zoning.
Right.
So if there is a concern about that, the board tonight can certainly vote. And if you should vote to send a positive recommendation, you can always condition it on that being reviewed by zoning. So that does get reviewed. And then that'll also give me some time to look at it, and it won't hold our applicant up if that's what you choose to do. Otherwise, I'd need some time to look at it, and he would have to come back.
okay, that's fine. That will solve our problem. We can, we've done that before, so that's easy enough.
Yeah, you could just list all of your,
We-
any concerns.
any
that
concerns we have,
that You want to point out to
So that
to the board.
they can take a look at it. Okay, other questions from the board?
Madam Chair, I don't know if you want me to chime
Oh
in
my
now.
I know the lands in the back slopes up. Even closer, okay. What arrangements do you have for fire escape for the top floor?
I don't exactly, so my architect Mr. Frank Parkowitz has been in direct contact with Robbie Lopez from the State Fire Marshal. So they're reviewing the whole life safety plan first before it goes to building. So, so they planned on, I know that there's, they have, I think it's 35 feet or 25 feet, they have access to a, a fire exit door, which is right down the bottom of the stairs. I don't know for sure if I need a third floor egress, for them to get out other than the main hallway. Certainly those windows that are going to be put in there are, what are those called? Those windows, the egress windows, thank you. Yeah, so they'll all be put in as egress windows. That's for the fire department to get in. But in terms of the employees getting out, this was one of the things that I really liked about this building. You know, I looked at over probably a dozen houses on this island. And what I did really like is the fact that the life safety of brand new fire alarm system, brand new sprinkler system, the sprinkler it brings sprinkler changes. This is based on what the architect said. It changes the life safety plan in terms of what you need for egress and what you don't need for egress. So I don't have that answer. All I can say is that I already connected Robbie Lopez of the State Fire Marshal's office with Frank, and they're reviewing the life safety plan to know exactly what they need before that they submit a final design to building.
Okay,
All right.
good. All right. Other questions?
I just had a question about just making sure that the application is all there and correct. I just noticed that you note that there's no area excluded from the lot, which should include a 50-foot perimeter of wetland buffer. And there, I believe there is a wetland within 50 feet. I just wanted to make sure that that was accounted for in the application. Okay.
I can look at it, but it really, I don't know if it.
I mean, the only reason I
Because
bring
it's
it
just-
up
yeah.
is because I think there are different, the minimum developable land for an inn is 20,000 square feet, and I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't bumping up against that with anything excluded.
Okay, I don't think there's any wetlands on.
The property.
There's not any,
property.
I don't think there are any on the property, but it
Or-
says here that a 50-foot perimeter of a wetland
Okay,
has to be included in the, oh, it has? Oh, okay, then we need to update our form.
Okay.
And then also just noting that it is within 100 feet of a coastal feature and a wetland. It says no on here. And yeah, if that's not an issue, the developable land all being, not having anything excluded from the lot. I just wanted to make sure that we weren't bumping up against that 20,000 square foot minimum developable land. And just making sure, I'm sure, Jen, that you've done this, but that the main building, it says it can only cover 25% of the lot and things like that. I just hadn't seen that all spelled out in the application since we're changing the use.
like, where do you see, I'm sorry, I just want to make. sure I'm
Yeah,
looking
no,
at it
it's
right.
just under 408.
Yep,
the
I'm looking
inns.
at that right now.
There were
to
just
make
more,
sure.
I just felt like there were more requirements associated with an inn than there were for a restaurant. And I just wanted to make sure, since we were changing the use, that it was consistent with those. It
So it's an
probably is.
existing structure, right, 20,000 square feet.
Yep,
um,
and so we're at 30, so I assume that there's plenty, but I just wanted to make sure the main building can cover 25% of the lot, which it's.
Building lot coverage, yeah, so they did not need a variance from
Okay.
the maximum lot building coverage when they built that structure, so
But it was being built as a restaurant, right?
it was, they had standards though that they had
Okay.
to comply with. and
Okay,
I can
okay.
look and see if it is comparable. And then accessory buildings, we don't have any lot coverage, not an issue. There's no
Great.
requirement for frontage, for setbacks, for height. So, because it's existing.
Right, but even for existing, it has dimensional requirements, and I just didn't see that in there.
No, for existing under 408, it doesn't have any setbacks. It says NA, unless it's a new structure.
Right, right. No, I was more concerned about the lot coverage and the minimum developable land. Making sure.
Pretty sure that service commercial has a higher percentage.
Yes,
Let
I'm-
me look.
I think it does too. And the building is already built, so.
Absolutely. It's just in the
Yeah.
ordinance, it spells
Right.
out for an existing structure, which is why I just wanted to make sure that those were, yeah.
It's the same for service commercial. So that property is located in the service commercial zone and it's 25% for lot building coverage. Just so you, yep. And then, that was the only one that we were looking at. I know that we went over these, but
And
I
there's
will
no
double
land
check.
excluded from development on this.
Nothing.
Okay.
They did have to go to the DEM CRMC for, the drainage,
Originally.
yes, in the
Yes.
front because of the proximity to the wetland.
Right, and that's actually what made me think of all this,
Mhm.
was that was included, so thank you for including that. Yeah, as long as all those things, and I echo what you had to say about the kitchens and including that for the zoning and all that.
Okay, anything else? Mary, anything? Bill? Okay.
No.
So I'm assuming that we're willing to send a favorable advisory to the zoning board?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
do you want me to chime in now or do you do public comment first?
Chime in now and then I'll do public comments.
Okay.
That's fine.
All right, so this application came in a little late, and it's the first special use permit that I've been looking at in my time here. So we haven't prepared a full report on this. One option would be to continue the matter to give us some time to do that. But assuming that you do want to get things done this meeting, I just want to draw your attention to what the zoning board is going to be looking at. So one is the section 408, which folks have kind of referenced already, which is the dimensions of the inn that are required, the no individual kitchens, and the lobby. There's also a series of requirements for special use permits in section 401. And that list is 9 items. They're pretty extensive, and I apologize if I'm repeating things that you're familiar with. It's a pretty extensive list, and I imagine the zoning board will be looking at it pretty closely. The one thing I did want to bring to the planning board's attention is that if the zoning board does ultimately grant this special use permit request, the approval will run with the land. So if the applicant here in a future date is no longer operating the inn in this fashion, it could become a commercial operation where there's 10 units, 10 rooms rented on a nice nightly basis. So I just want to bring that to the planning board's attention, and that might be a concern that you want to address as this goes to the zoning board.
Okay. So,
And I just want to point out that this is scheduled for a public hearing for February 26th. So they would have to continue it if you don't do your advisory tonight, if you push your advisory off to March.
I think we could do an advisory with a list of concerns that we would like the zoning board to take a look at. Nothing is terribly serious, but we do want to set up and make sure that you have water allocation, that you resolve the question about the 2 kitchens, the fire safety, and that parking, I think is fine, but we could make sure that they look at it. And, this is going to be used for employee housing, not for an Airbnb or something along that line.
And just so there's no confusion, I'm assuming this board is neutral on the number of kitchens. Is that correct? I mean, I don't have a preference one way or the other, how many kitchens you have. In other words, I want the client to have as much of an option here as possible. Or is this board recommending only 1 kitchen?
I was recommending only 1 kitchen, but I could be talked, I could be talked out of that.
I would be happy with one.
Yeah.
But if you needed me to have two to satisfy any of your requirements.
Well, as I said,
fine.
that is something I think, as we said earlier, the lawyers need to look at to
Yep.
make sure that your use of an inn is correct. But I think that's one of the things we could list as a concern for the zoning board to look at.
Completely fair and completely agreeable to.
Okay.
whatever you-
Questions from the audience? Anything else from the board? Then I would, as I said, I made a motion to be able to favorably approve it with the zoning board considering the following items.
I did write down your list that you just went over.
Oh, okay, fine.
You want to know if there are,
The water allocation, parking, which is not really a major concern, whether it's one or two kitchens. I think our preference is certainly to have one kitchen, but this is a kitchen that would serve the entire inn, not a kitchen for an individual room. We want to make sure that that is very clear.
Correct.
Whether the second kitchen is needed to meet the definition of commercial usage, I don't know. That's the lawyers are going to have to look at that. We certainly want to make sure that the third floor has whatever is required for fire safety. I don't know what that is, so I will leave it open-ended in that case. And we want to note that this is for employee housing only. It is not to be used at the present time as an Airbnb or an overnight rental. If the use changes, that you would have to come back to zoning and planning. Got all that? Okay, great, good. Okay, any
I'm
further-
not sure if the zoning board will, I mean, I can't speak for them, but if they will say it's for employee housing only, because if the use complies and they're not asking for variances or, but
Right.
that'll be up to the zoning.
That'll,
board.
the zoning board, let them, at least they will,
At least they know you're.
they're nowhere, we're concerned about that. I think it's an excellent location for employee housing. I'm not sure how good a location it is for an Airbnb because of the fact that there is a lot of noise in that area, but that's neither here nor there. Any other questions or comments or anything else from the board?
No.
Okay. Any of the audience? Last chance. Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries. Motion, social
So
seconded.
you seconded the motion?
Yes, she did.
Thank you.
Everybody's in favor. Okay,
I can't thank you enough. I really.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you so
luck.
much.
and hopefully all of your new businesses will open. We'll be happy to welcome you to the community. So thanks for
Thank you
coming
so
by.
much. Everyone's been absolutely excellent. So thank you so much. Thanks.
And it's kind of amazing that you made it through planning, conservation commission and HDC and back to zoning in like less than a month. So
Amazing.
did a good job. Yeah.
Just
That
to
was-
add
that was
that, I
great.
do business in probably 6 towns and this has by far been the best one to deal with. So I just
Well,
want to say.
thank you.
So thank you.
Well,
Yeah.
as I said, good luck on your new businesses. We look forward to patronizing you this summer.
Cheers. Thank you.
Okay, take care.
Yep. Good one.
Okay, number 2, BI Goff LLC, Plat 18, Lot 8, pre-application for a minor subdivision off of West Side Road. Joe, go ahead. Tell us what-
I think this could probably be an administrative subdivision as opposed to a minor, but I found it as a minor because we have one issue we probably want the planning board to address. Back in 1999, Dorothy DuPont owned the lot 9, which is a small diagonal lot with a house on it. And she owned to the north of that 2 large lots totaling about 25 acres, one of which is lot 8, which is the lot subject to this application. She, in 1999, imposed a conservation easement over the two larger lots, not over the house lot, which limited the lots to a 3-acre building envelope each. And you see the 3-acre envelope on lot 8 on this map. At the time she imposed that conservation easement, she wasn't thinking about the fact that even though she had a small house lot, she used the land around it for a lawn and for an area part of the house. And then she sold one of the lots and all of a sudden she had a neighbor who said, "You can't use your lawn anymore. That's my lawn." Well, she has a new neighbor now. And new neighbor says, "I want you to have your lawn. We don't want to change your development rights at all. And because it's a substandard lot of record, if we added land to it, even if it had a conservation easement, it might down the line, it might or might not, but it could well change what's developable on the existing lot number 9. So what we propose to do instead is to create the funny shaped band you see as a lot not for development. And that basically covers the lot. And to basically convey it to the DuPont family after it's done with a contingency that we want you to impose that it never be merged with the existing smaller lot, because once you merge it, you have I can't predict how the zoning development, the development is going to change. The only way I can keep the development the same on that existing lot is keeping it a separate lot. And that's the gist of this proposal.
Questions?
Just a simple one. First of all, I see nothing wrong with the proposal. It makes sense. Unintended consequences.
That's what I'm trying to avoid.
The homeowner
Yes.
right here should not be allowed to put all kinds of structures on this
That-
without a basement or without a foundation.
There's already the conservation already prohibits any construction on the part that shows in red.
Not even construction. I mean, for example, a portable barn or a portable.
It also prevents the use of any structure. So the easement is all they'll be able to use that for under the conservation easement is a lawn. They can't put even picnic tables on.
Okay. Because I can see potential abuse there.
Yeah, and I think what you're saying, yeah, because 100 years from now, who's gonna own it and what they're
Right.
gonna want to do. Yeah,
Right.
and that's part of the reason I don't want it to be able to be merged.
Okay.
And the reason I want it in the record, I don't want it just to be based on the conservation easement, so that any building official in the future will see that they can't be merged.
And just keep in mind, this is pre-application, and Peter may want to speak to the process of the application.
Okay.
I have a couple questions as well, Joe, when you're done.
Okay, let me finish with the board and then I will go to you two. Okay, whoops, sorry, I'm losing my way. Okay, any, Claire, any questions?
No, I don't.
Mary?
No, the same question Sosha had.
Okay.
And I like Joe's answer about the contingency,
Yeah,
about that. So no.
good. Okay, good. Bill?
No, no real questions. It's just kind of an odd shape, but I guess.
Yes.
That's gonna show up on a map. What you're gonna see in the middle is what you've already seen. What it is right now, that little funny shaped house lot,
Yeah,
the house is on it, but the land that's shown in red around it, if you go out there, it's gonna look like it's lawn because it's
Yeah.
been used as this lawn.
yeah. Okay.
And it's specifically labeled on the plan lot not for development in accordance with your regs.
Yeah.
And I did happen to see, Scott, and he said that the Nature Conservancy does not have a problem with this.
Yeah, we, in fact, they have been in close contact with both the DuPonts and the
Yeah.
McMahons, and they're all really, the idea was to work together to allow the DuPonts to have their lawn
Yeah,
and not to give them, and not to basically unintentionally allow any additional development on the lot.
okay, good. All right, questions, for, Peter?
I don't know that I have a question. It's just kind of laying out the process. So, as folks are aware, that Enabling Act has changed the last few years, and so a minor subdivision, unless it needs a variance or is building a new road, is now administrative. So it would be performed by Jen, and then after preliminary approval, once it goes to final approval, that would be reported out to the board at a meeting. So I spoke with Jen recently, and I think what I'm going to do is I'll be doing staff reports for Jen as part of her review of minor subdivisions. But it might be new to the board that this application likely, and applications like it, will not be coming back for preliminary approval unless they need that variance or street extension.
And this one does not need a street extension.
Mhm.
The only thing that we would need was the requirement that it not be merged, and whether if Jen can do that, we're fine with Jen doing it. If you have to, we're fine with you doing it.
Okay. Other questions from the, Karen, you got a question?
Yeah, a couple questions. Joe, do you need any sort of Nature Conservancy approval?
the conservation easement stays on the property. So no, we don't. We, under the terms of the conservation, but they do approve of this. But we don't, but we don't need it because we're not changing the conservation easement. And by not merging it, we're not changing any potential development related to it.
Okay, and no restrictions in that easement as to conveyancing?
I'm sorry?
No restrictions in that easement as to ability to transfer or convey?
No, there are none. No.
There are none, okay. And then the other question I had is as to the no merger provision, why not do it through the transfer on the deed?
I would put it in the transfer, but I want to have it not, if we do it anything privately, private parties can change it. We want it to be a municipally imposed restriction on top of the private so that we have belts and suspenders. The idea being that down the road, somebody catches it and doesn't let it be used to increase development.
Yeah, it sounds like we're on the same page. So you are gonna be doing it privately, but you want the public as kind of belts and suspenders. Does that make sense? Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
Okay, yeah, because my concern would be obviously if we were to do it just at a municipal level. And this is gonna be a substandard lot, is that right?
Yes.
I wouldn't want it to be administratively merged because someone didn't someone years from now might not realize. So I understand what you're saying now. I appreciate that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
No.
Do you need a motion from us, Joe, for this?
I don't think so. We basically either Jen is going to
Yeah,
work
that's
out
what
that
I
she
thought,
can
but I'm
do it,
just crossing my T's and dotting my I's.
or we'll schedule it before you.
Okay. So we all agree that it's approved by it's okay with the Nature Conservancy, and it's not for development. And it has, the conservation easement stays with the property. Okay.
And it's not to be merged with lot.
And not to be merged, sorry, thank you. It's not to be merged.
And just so we're clear, you are just on for a pre-app tonight.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Number 3, Pilot Hill Road, 1261 Realty Trust, Plat 8, Lot 190, pre-application for a minor subdivision off of Pilot Hill Road.
This is dividing an approximately 8.25 acre lot into 2 lots, one of which will have 190,000 square feet, one of which will have 156,000 square feet, both of which will have over 135,000 square feet of developable land. It's a complicated site, and it does require the creation of a street, which you'll see along the southerly boundary. There's a wetland that runs through the property, and to get to the lot that's on the north requires a wetlands crossing. So the way they've designed the site is to follow an existing trail through the narrowest part of the wetland. You'll see that in the southeast corner leading up to the building site on that lot, which is on the northeast corner. Like I said, that follows an existing trail over a narrow stream and is the most logical place to cross the wetlands. And by designing it so that the road is along the southerly boundary, the wetlands only has to be crossed by a driveway as opposed to a road, which so makes it even a smaller wetlands crossing required. We would ask you that an approval on this would be contingent upon subsequent DEM approval of the wetlands crossing. But we'd rather have you do it first before we design it, because if you're not going to approve it, we don't want to go to the expense of designing the crossing.
I don't have any questions. Sosha, if you got questions?
Right, and we're not giving a permission for the building of a structure.
No.
So I was just curious though, when I looked at the map, I could not find a line that delineates the two lots that I created.
It is essentially down the middle
Oh,
of the
it's that
property.
way.
You'll see the
Oh,
two zoning
I
setbacks,
see it.
and between that, it's very faint.
Now I see it.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just curious about that. So yeah, my notes say, wait for CRMC,
See what they, yeah,
yeah,
Although in this case, it'll be DEM.
DEM.
okay.
Claire, questions? Okay, Mary?
Just one, Joe.
Good.
Yeah, I think you mentioned it too, the road going over the wetlands, and it crosses it again, right after that 75-foot wetland buffer going north. If you,
It crosses, is the stream, but there's a 100-foot stream buffer that it essentially runs through. Yeah, you'll see that that's,
that 75-foot wetland buffer setback, the
Mhm.
road in there, so I'm just saying, watch that, it's really, really close. And then just kind of a general question, and maybe I'm just not seeing it, it's on the second sheet, Joe, where it shows the proposed 4-bedroom house. There's a wide and proposed, it's like 3-foot wide and 40-foot long, 18-foot deep, this infiltration trench.
I think that's what he's,
It's on your page sheet 2.
that's to control runoff from the dwelling. Yeah.
Then I assume the other one is too, it's not labeled, it's north of the dwelling.
Yeah, it's the one that went, you mean, up in the north.
Yep.
Just like the one south. Okay.
Yeah, it's not-
Yeah, so it looks like it's the same thing.
And then the setbacks for the wells are okay, the well that exists. looks like-
Yeah, the well setbacks are 100 feet from any existing.
So the Burger well and the proposed well are the proper distance apart.
Yes, the wells can be within that distance of each other. They just can't be within that distance of septic systems.
Oh, right. Just sunk in what you said. Thank you.
Okay,
Thanks.
Any
other questions?
No,
Okay,
And since this does require the creation of a street to provide frontage, this will have to come before you with the preliminary hearing,
yes,
and we're ready for it.
okay. Peter, have you got any questions?
That was my question, so thank you for the answer.
Always like that. Karen, have you got any thoughts?
Nothing from me.
Okay,
I do have a question. Are you all right with us asking you to approve that contingent upon DEM approval as opposed to going to get the wetlands crossed? I know we have to get the wetlands staked and flagged and everything before you see it, but we'd rather not have to design the crossing. But if you, but I don't want to not design it, come back to you, and then you say, oh, you should have designed it.
yeah. I don't know. Anybody have any strong feelings?
No, I like the contingency answer.
Can you just explain that again?
In other words, we've got to go to the DEM to flag the wetlands to get them to confirm. That's part of your process.
Right,
What we don't have to necessarily do is design the crossing that we're going to do under your, and so I'm asking the board if they will be happy to consider this with us saying that it's, any approval they give is subject to DEM approving the crossing, or if they want to see the crossing first. I think they're saying they don't care.
But at
I
some
think-
point, DEM,
Well, I
At some
think-
point, at some point, if you approve the subdivision, we're going to have to go to DEM and get the crossing
Anyway.
approved.
right.
So
I think that we want to hear what DEM would like to say.
I'd really like to know what DEM says, because if they say no, then what we're doing is academic.
okay, that answers my question.
Okay. Yeah. I see,
And
now
actually,
that I think about it,
And since we're going there anyways,
you gotta go, yes,
probably just as well.
I think so. Now, do you need a motion for this, or is this just a,
The consensus is, again, it's
Consensus.
pre-application.
okay, fine,
Thank you.
thank you. Right. Number 5, on discuss scheduling a joint meeting with the Housing Board for Affordable and Attainable Housing, discuss strategies for affordable and attainable housing, prioritize and identify favorable to implement in the short term, provide feedback to Weston and Sampson. since we do not have any new material to go over today, I'm going to recommend that we talk about a few dates that would be possible for us to meet as a group with the housing board and see if we can get something maybe in early to mid March. I don't want to do it in February because too many people are traveling, but I'm thinking March, maybe even into April if necessary. So what do we,
And I just like.
come up and talk.
Can you, the March 12th meeting, Gail will not be at that meeting. And then April, I think everybody should be here.
Back here,
Okay.
yeah.
So
What, maybe, is there anything that would prevent us from meeting an hour earlier in,
that's what I was,
in April?
been
As a
working
start.
together for a long time.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what I had written down. I mean, unless the agenda is really light, but also,
And
I'll just play it by ear.
I was hoping that we could be provided at our next meeting, the exact reasons why the state is not counting some of the affordable housing that we thought was affordable, because the reasons will then determine our strategies. For example, do we need to go back to the state and explain, hey, this doesn't work? Whatever. I think it's very important that we know the exact reasons. I know one of them is that the deed expired after 30 years, because that was, we were told at the time that was the only thing that could be done, and I think that explains Pilot Hill,
Mhm.
but.
No, not Pilot Hill.
Beacon.
Beacon Hill.
I'm the other.
But we could talk about.
You know what I mean? And I think Nancy knows exactly what the reasons are, but if we haven't spelled out, um,
Cindy?
Cindy,
okay.
I am so sorry. I'm terrible with
Um,
names.
Sure, we can.
Do you know what I mean?
Can, Mark could bring that back to his board and
Yeah.
report back.
She knows exactly why.
Well, she
And I think that,
doesn't quite. I'm Mark McGuire, the new chair of the Housing Board. Cindy and I,
Congratulations.
thank you. Yeah, right.
Anyway, round of applause.
But Cindy and I discussed that today, and we will look into it as much as we can and come with that answer
yeah.
to the next time we meet. And I can be available before your next meeting on the 12th of March,
Yeah.
or I'm flexible, pretty flexible, but someone will be there from the
Don't you
Housing Board.
think that the reasons for them not being counted will be our platform for deciding what direction we need to take?
It will contribute, yes.
Yes, it will, but some of the proposal or the proposed action items on the Weston and Sampson
I know.
document, they don't all have to do with whether or not they count at 10%. So, but I think it's good information. If you're curious,
Right.
you should get, yes, you should know the answer to that.
Right.
So we could schedule it for March 12th. Again, Gail,
It's starting at 3 instead of 4.
unless we have a really light agenda.
Okay.
That works.
Then look, if we don't finish in March, we can certainly roll it over again till April.
Need an introductory, set the tone.
Yeah.
Direction. right?
So, why don't we put a joint meeting with the housing board? If you have more than 3 members, then that are planning to attend, we need to post that.
Yes.
So just.
I'll work those details out. Yeah.
And then for April, we'll add this discussion again to number 1 on the agenda if we can, and
Mhm.
ask Weston and Sampson to come back at that point. Does that sound good?
Yeah, it sounds very good. And give us any information that you think we ought to take a look at.
Absolutely.
You know, at least probably about a week before we meet, just so we have a time to go over it, because not everybody is free every day, as you well know.
Got it. Yep, understand.
Documents. Right? We already have the documents from.
Yes, we have some stuff, absolutely.
From Weston and Sampson?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I can send it around
Resubmit
again,
that.
and then, just the action items like we talked about at the last
That we
meeting.
have.
And
Mhm.
that's gonna be the point of the meeting, is to review those action items and strategize. That's
Mhm.
the goal.
Yes.
right? Doesn't it?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, and I would send it out to everybody again, just to make sure we all have it. So
Okay.
that's good. Okay,
All right.
good. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Appreciate your coming. That was,
I thought she said 3:30.
I'm gonna say 3 o'clock unless we have a really light agenda, and then we could keep it at 4 if
Okay.
whatever.
Yeah.
You'll let us know.
oh, yes, you'll get an agenda because we have to post it. Great. Thank you very much. All right. All right, number 6, clarify the language in section 406G4 regarding second-story decks. Particularly our request from the town council on some material that they did, had some confusion on. I won't say they didn't understand it, but they were a little confused. And we have some drawings here from Kim. If she'd like to go over them with us, is she on?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Okay, good. Thank you. By the way, I like the drawings. Thank you very
Great.
much.
Great. Good evening. So the intention of this set of drawings is to essentially show to the board what the language describes architecturally. So do you all have access to the memo?
Yes, we should all have it.
So if you go to the second page, you can see the first set of drawings. And the very first set of drawings describes the sort of base set of conditions that the following drawings adhere to. So this tells us basically what is a balcony, what is a deck, where can it be, how big can it be. So in the first part of the text, balconies, decks, and other similar flat unroofed features projecting from a residential structure at a height of more than 5 feet. So if you look at the first elevation, the pitched roof house, you see that 5 foot on the bottom of the elevation. So I understand this to mean that decks whose floor sits below 5 feet will not be included in the regulation. And then you can see on the other plan, it shows that all decks combined should not exceed 1,200 square feet. So that's the first point. And then you list 4 different conditions that the deck could take. And this next group of drawings describes those 4 different conditions. So number 1, bordered on a minimum of 2 sides by exterior walls of the residential structure, resulting in the unroofed area having a minimum of 2 sides with guardrails. So I understand this to mean in elevation, what the drawing on the left shows, and in plan, what the drawing on the right shows. So in plan, you can see that there are 2 walls, 2 sides of exterior walls, sort of enveloping the deck. And then you can see on that drawing the note that says 2 sides with guardrails. Okay, and then the next set of drawings is 2A, and I've just shown this in 2 drawings because I've shown a condition where the building has a sloped roof, and then a second drawing where the building has a flat roof. So on 2A, on page 2, the language says located above and supported by enclosed and heated finished living space below. So that I understand that to mean that there's essentially building below the deck. And the plan part of that drawing suggests that it doesn't necessarily have to take the whole part of the floor plan to meet that condition. Okay, and then 2B is essentially the same set of conditions where the living space is drawn below, the balcony or deck is above, and it's a flat roof building. Although again, you can see in the plan, it doesn't necessarily have to occupy the whole footprint of the building. And again, it should be under 1,200 square feet in total. So the third one gets a little more complicated, supported by and built into a sloping roof line. So you could imagine essentially a gabled roof that's been cut out on one side or even through the ridge, and then the porch is sort of carved out of, the deck is carved out of the roof. And then the fourth condition above a porch, and that suggests that it's limited essentially to the footprint of the porch. So I guess those are your words, and those are my drawings to describe your words. And I guess the question for you is, do the words meet your expectations, or do the drawings suggest you might want to change the words?
Okay, Sosha?
First of all, I love the drawings. They're very, very clear.
Good.
So thank you for that. I did think, however, that at our last meeting, we decided to drop the 1,200 maximum square feet per deck because we were discussing how the design of the house more or less dictates the design of the decks. And we didn't want to limit people, and it could backfire if we do.
I think that's correct.
And I just wanted to mention that you did make a motion, but then you withdrew your motion, nothing happened. So you didn't decide one way or the other. on that.
okay.
At least that's what I
Okay,
had from my.
because I'm still not in favor.
Just if I could add to that, my understanding is that the current draft that went before the council did take out that 1,200 square foot language in the first line. Is that what you have done?
No, that
No,
when
I
it was
don't have that.
presented to the council was frustrated because of the reasons I just listed, and that's why it went back to us. So we don't want to put
Right,
in
that
the
1,200 was.
So
Yes.
okay, that's interesting because the copy I have, I'm gonna have to check that because the copy that I have in front of me has
Okay.
that line deleted.
Yeah, Karen, I think one of your colleagues did some edits based on the last planning board meeting. We might not all be on the
Right.
same page.
Yes,
Yeah,
Peter's
that's my
correct.
understanding. So, but this has gone to the council. So let me check to see the copy that just went to the council. Actually, I should have that because I have the town council.
I think I have it right here. I'll look at it, but at the last meeting, they definitely talked about removing that 1,200 square feet.
Yes.
But there were no motions made, so you can add it. We have language in the form of an ordinance that came from Karen's office. For this
Yeah,
meeting.
you know what? You're absolutely right. I don't know what's happening here, and I'm gonna have to check on that. I just pulled up the version that was before the council. And yeah, apparently I'm gonna have to check internally to see what's going on because my copy is different than the one that was presented. So apologize for that that problem. But just for a little background, yeah, when I went to the council, I think I was for the council for something else. This came up. Questions were raised, and there was some issue with just not understanding what this all meant. And that honestly was pretty consistent with, I think, the trouble you all were having, and I think applicants were having in terms of trying to interpret what this all means. So the recommendation was made to add maybe some images like the ones that Libra was so kind to put together. So that's
Right.
just background.
Images are wonderful.
Apologies.
So you're really you're reviewing two documents. One is the draft language that Karen's office provided, eliminating the 1,200 square feet. And then adding some definitions of balcony, deck, and porch. And then you're also reviewing the memo from Kim with the
drawings.
that are awesome. They're so clear. I appreciate it. Trying to decide if something complies with the ordinance, they're really helpful.
Yeah.
So when the language is finalized and the decision about 1,200 square feet is made, we can certainly amend the drawings to reflect all of that.
Right.
Well, I think the board basically wanted to remove the 1,200 square feet. Was what I remembered, and I went back to my notes and I hadn't written any notes down, so it's out of my head. So Social, you agree with dropping the 1,200 square feet?
Please.
Right,
Okay.
do you want to just make a motion on the 1,200 square feet so that we can kind
All
of
right, why don't I,
finalize that? Because I think the last time, not everyone was on the same, at the last meeting, not everyone was on the same page and there was
Okay.
a little.
yeah, I had some concerns about dropping it because I didn't want one to become too large, but I agree that the design of the house does tend to trigger what size your deck or balcony would be. So I,
And we came up with examples where a
yeah.
restriction would actually make
Big-
it worse.
Yes. So that's what I that's what I got convinced.
It always felt too big to me.
Yeah.
1,200 square feet, too generous.
It's very big, but it is, and we did have that in our previous ordinance we've had for the last 10 years or so. Before that, I don't believe there was any limitation on size.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't think we had any limitation when I first came on the board.
You did not.
So, and so some of the, there are a few houses that have decks that go like on three sides, kind of a wraparound type Victorian
Yeah.
porch, and it looks really good. So I am willing to remove the 1,200 square feet. So-
We can always revisit.
Yeah, that's true. That's a very good point. These are living documents. We could come back and reverse them or quantify them in some different way if we find that it doesn't work to the advantage of the community. So I'll make a motion that we remove from the regulations that an elevated deck not exceed 1,200 square feet.
Second,
Okay. Any further comments?
Just so I'm clear, so that's single deck cannot be worth no longer.
It says any elevated deck.
Any
I
elevated
wasn't
deck.
part of this conversation last month, so I just want to make sure I understand.
So any elevated deck above the first floor is anchored so there are at least two walls of the building bordering the deck. So we're taking out the first sentence, correct?
Yep.
In no case shall the total area of an elevated deck exceed 1,200 square feet.
Okay.
So you're removing that in both sentences.
So that third sentence, the one that's.
Are you
restricted.
removing any
12.
elevated deck above the first floor? Are you removing that one or no? No, you're, okay.
No.
Just so, okay.
Because the document I'm looking at,
I just want to make
Has-
sure.
what's that, it has the crossed out, any elevated deck above the first floor is anchored so that there is at least two walls of building bordering a deck. In no case shall the total area of an elevated deck exceed 1,200 square feet. That has been crossed out, but then this next sentence also references 1,200 square feet. We're taking out that sentence. Am I understanding that correctly? Or am I looking at something totally different? Am
I
I looking
don't
at something
see-
wrong? Oh, okay, I apologize.
So under 406, number 4,
Mm-hmm.
we are leaving in the first sentence that says any elevated deck above the first floor is anchored so that there are at least two walls of the building bordering the deck.
Okay, leaving that in.
We're leaving that sentence and we're removing, in no case shall the total area of an elevated deck exceed 1,200 square feet.
Okay. And then my next sentence, which I'm sorry, I thought I was looking at what you just sent, but maybe I'm not. My next sentence says balconies, decks, and other similar flat unroofed features projecting from a residential structure at a height of more than 5 feet from the ground, above ground level, may not exceed a total of 1,200 square feet. Is that just not, that doesn't exist anymore? That's
don't
not
see
in there?
that.
No, but.
Okay,
I'm
I'm sorry.
I will send,
All right, I thought I was looking at.
there's
the right one.
there's so many.
Just wanted to make
versions.
sure that I.
Yeah, we've had quite a few, and this one doesn't have a date on it, which is hard, so it's hard to cross-reference it.
Okay, I apologize. I just wanted to make sure that,
Okay,
okay.
The January 30th one, Claire.
January
the
30th.
January 30th
Let me find that.
from the Libra planners.
I'm emailing it to you right now.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know how
I
quickly
apologize.
you'll receive it, but.
okay. I just want to make sure we all know what we're voting.
And I could be pulling up the wrong
And
card.
Jen, could you email that to me as well?
Yes,
Okay. I'll wait till everybody's got it.
and just let me know if this is not. the most
What are we
correct.
doing?
Okay.
No, that's out. Okay,
It's also in the drawing too, Claire.
Yeah,
You see that
yeah,
on page
I
two.
do see.
so do you need a motion from me at this point?
You made a motion,
Okay,
Bill seconded.
Fine.
the Motion, and I think you needed to vote. Sorry.
okay, so we're up to, I can't remember where we were. Okay, so we all agree that we were removing the 1,200 square feet. That was what my motion was, and Bill seconded it. All those in favor say aye. Anyone opposed? Anybody abstain?
Claire, did you vote?
I didn't vote. I'm sorry.
That's what I thought. I thought you were.
If
still-
you wish to abstain, you can do
Well,
that.
I don't want to, sorry, I'm holding up the whole process, but I just haven't seen, I don't feel like I've seen the, um, but
This would have been
It's this
emailed,
one.
it was emailed with your packets, and then it was also in your boxes.
Mhm.
Here.
taking it out there. So there are gonna be no restrictions on how big decks can be.
So we're left arguing whether it looks appropriate to the scale of the design of the.
Yes, that,
Right.
yes, that's
That's what
exactly
it is.
right.
And there's just our sort of saying to them, we don't think this is in scale with the house. What are
Are
the
there any
checks on
teeth?
it?
Well, you would review the plans, so they would have to comply with lot building coverage. You would
Sure.
also review, as an advisory, you would review, anything that falls under the 406, which is the large house ordinance, I
Mhm.
call it.
Mhm.
You would see the zoning board application for a special use permit.
It's only for special use permit.
Right, it's only for 406, right.
So,
for-
I mean, I hear what you're getting at. I
Yeah.
think, Claire, correct me if I'm wrong, that we're left saying something that doesn't have much teeth in it and much fact in it. We're left saying, we think that it should be this size based on the size of your house. X dimension based on the dimension of your house.
We have put in here, it must be well integrated into the design of the building and scale, placement and
Oh, thank you,
detailing.
Margie.
That's your guideline.
That's your guidelines.
Okay,
And we
yeah.
could, and we
Okay.
could go back to
Okay.
referring what certain things are in scale or not in scale and it's.
Okay.
Yeah, so I
Okay.
think,
All right, I apologize.
no
Yes,
problems.
I'm in favor.
So,
Yes.
okay, so going to the town council will be the amendments on the balconies and decks and porch, along with the drawings, so that they get both of those. That correct?
Okay, so on the document that I think is the most current version, you're adding all of the underlined,
Mm-hmm.
okay?
So it says.
And then the first sentence you're leaving in, you're striking the second sentence and incorporating the drawings.
Well,
Yeah.
Jen, just for clarification, the one you just sent me does not have that second sentence with 1,200. So I think it's just leave what,
It does, it's the number 4. It says any elevated deck above the first floor is. You see that, and then in no case shall the total area.
right. No, but there was another sentence that had 1,200 as well.
I
So
think
just
I
wanted-
was looking at.
Claire
Claire's
was-
version.
Claire's version
Yes.
had 1,200. I do not see that in this.
Right, so just so I'm clear, so that first sentence, starting any elevated deck, ending exceed 1,200 square feet, that was stricken in this draft, it is now coming back.
No.
No,
No.
no, any elevated deck.
Mhm.
That first sentence, there's a period after the word deck. And
Yep.
then no case shall the total area of an elevated deck exceed 1,200 square feet. That sentence is removed,
So you're keeping the first sentence, removing the second,
correct?
Mm-hmm.
okay. And then after that, and then you're gonna add those images.
I want to
guess,
add the
right
images.
below- Right below.
However, you, at the
the
top
text.
of
Okay.
page 2, on the memo, make sure you take out the, not to exceed the total of 1,200 square feet. That would need to come out
Yes,
based on what we've just voted on.
yes.
And then that would be correct to go to the town council as an, was it an addendum to our changes here? So
Yes.
that it makes it clear to them exactly what we're talking about.
Does the, just so I'm clear, where it says elevation and then plan as the headings,
Mhm.
does that run true all the way down as
Yes.
columns? Okay.
Anything else we want to add or?
So just, I have 2 points. So
Yes,
one, it's the draft that I have, this is, I think, subsection 406G4. G isn't good. And I don't think the draft has the letter in it. There's a few fours in section 406. But it's under the G, part of that. And then
Yeah, that's helpful. So it's G4, correct?
just trying to follow along, it sounds like the first sentence of 4 requires that a deck have 2 walls, of the building bordering it. But then with the new language, we are stating the same thing under number 1, but 2, 3, and 4. I'm not sure if the intent there is to have those decks that are on a roof border a wall.
oh, I see what you're saying. Maybe we,
That's what I
maybe
was-
we should take out that whole first sentence.
That's what we were just, yeah.
Yeah,
talking
say,
about.
just take out any elevated deck above the first floor, is anchored, period.
So
'Cause we-
basically, it's exactly how it's written, is what you're proposing.
Well, we don't want to say there's 2 sides of the building bordering on the deck because then we give out examples of where that is not the case.
Okay, that's what I,
Yeah.
right, that's,
So I'd say start with balconies, decks, and other similar flat unroofed features must be supported by at least one of the following means. And just take those first 2 sentences out totally.
thank you, that makes a lot.
Does that make sense to everybody? It
Yeah.
makes sense to me. Okay, I just took it off on mine.
Yeah.
Okay, so we start with balconies, decks, and other similar flat unroofed features, etc. And then we have our 4 examples. And then we have the drawings that go with it to make it clear. And then we have the section on definitions. Okay?
Yeah.
Everybody on the same page?
Yes, I have just one last question.
Good.
On 2A, maybe it's a question for you, Kim. How is it significant that it's a heated, finished living space below?
It isn't to me because I made the drawings, I didn't make the language. So it's significant to whoever drafted the language. But that's just the technical answer. I suspect whoever drafted that is saying that it's essentially on top of part of the house that's being used.
Yeah.
So that part of the house will appear like an inhabited house. It'll have windows, it may have doors.
I guess I have one other comment, which is
Okay,
the porch. I don't know if there's some way to reference that the porch has a floor, if that's important,
Yes,
to differentiate from just
yeah.
an area that's of earth that's covered by a deck.
Well, that raises the other question too, and that is that it's not clear in the language that the 5 feet refers to the porch floor.
Deck floor, yeah, right, the
Deck
deck.
floor.
Yeah.
What would you change?
so what are you suggesting we add to it?
So I guess if we were to handle Kim's first. Oh, I lost the 5 feet part, but is that sentence still in there or do we lose that?
We only lost the first 2 sentences on
So
4,
So we still have balconies, decks, and other similar flat and roof features
correct?
Yes,
projecting from a residential structure at a height of you could say finished floor height of more than 5 feet above ground level.
Hmm.
Or I don't know if it's ground level or grade that you're concerned about.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it a finished floor. I would call it a deck. because it's not a finished floor.
Deck floor
Yeah.
height, yeah.
So change above ground level.
And I would say grade.
Okay, read to me where you're changing, because you're lost.
Yeah, so projecting from a residential structure at a,
Are we talking
floor-
about, are you talking about a
floor
deck
height.
or a porch?
no, sorry, we're doing the deck first.
Okay, deck, all right.
This is 406 G4, first sentence. Balconies, decks, and other similar flat unroofed features projecting from a residential structure at a, is it floor height, Kim?
Say it
Add the
again.
word floor. Are we adding the word floor or deck floor? Two
Deck,
words.
deck floor.
Two words. So at a deck floor height
Okay,
of more than 5 feet above, and then instead of ground level, say grade
Above grade level,
or finished
finished grade?
finished grade.
Yeah, finished grade.
okay.
And then under the definition of porch, an unheated roofed or covered structure, excuse me, an unheated roofed or covered structure. I don't know if we want to say with a floor, but maybe with a built floor, Kim.
No, I can't think of the right word to describe that. I mean, the floor is the deck, but it's a ceiling. It's a finished ceiling that's in the, so what are you trying to say?
I'm just worried about someone calling an unfinished space under a deck a porch.
Mhm.
So are you trying to say why don't you call the porch a finished porch? Because then that assumes it has finished line.
Okay, so that would be up above, right?
Yeah.
Under 4, it would be supported by and located above a finished porch.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So in G406 G4 last sentence, where item 4 there, it says supported by and located above add the word finished before porch.
Is someone going to amend this before we send it to the council? Just so I make sure that we're all on the same page. And
Yeah, I think at this point, I think Libra can do that because they've got to drop in the
Okay.
images as well. This was originally drafted by
Just wanna
Allison.
make sure. Thank you.
So happy to have our planner pick that up.
Okay,
Okay.
Yes.
Okay,
So, okay, Libra will do that. Okay, thank you. Just want to make sure.
okay. So,
And this board, you don't need to see anything again. You're comfortable with us making changes based on what?
Yes.
Okay. And
I think we've gone through
send that
this.
to the council.
Yeah, I think we can go ahead and send this to the town council. However, I would love to have you email the final draft to all of us, so we could just take a
Yeah.
quick
Oh,
look
yeah,
at it.
I'll
Yeah.
definitely do
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
Yep.
If,
Please.
yeah, that way, I like having several eyes on it. That way, if there's a typo or something, we all pick it up. Okay, so I'll put down here that you'll email this to us, email corrections. Okay? Anything else?
No.
All right, moving along, since we're approaching 5:30. Okay, discuss and act on the amendment to zoning ordinance, section 512, outdoor lighting ordinance.
Madam Chair, I would ask Libra at this point to maybe make a short presentation. They have provided you with a pretty great staff report with some recommended actions.
Okay,
all right.
I'd like to go ahead and do that. That'd be perfect.
Sure, just need a minute to pull it up. So we talked about this at the last meeting, and the kind of the big picture issue was that we thought it might be best to have it not be in Appendix E zoning, and have it be nestled in the main body of the code, because there's language in here that addresses existing conditions, and with zoning under the State Enabling Act, it's usually applied on future projects. So jumping down to the last page of the report, which addresses those recommendations that the solicitor mentioned. That there's a blank spot in the draft about enforcement that's been talked about, I believe, in front of this board with the zoning official administrative officer. And given the many tasks within that department, and also the fact that lighting is a nighttime issue primarily, the town has limited staff who are very limited staff who are working at night, and the folks that are best able to have an eye on things at night are the police. I don't know that any conversation has been had with them about this ordinance. If it hasn't, that would be a good thing to do. And then the related to that is figuring out civil penalties. The zoning ordinance has its own prescription for violations and how those are enforced. If we're going through kind of just the main code, we'd have to look at that more clearly. And then I think we covered the issue of people leaving their property for a short period of time at the last meeting. So that last paragraph should be all set. And then the middle paragraph of the comments is related to enforcement. And so as we're working on finalizing this development of this ordinance with the folks who are ultimately enforcing it, we have to figure out how to measure, provide objective things that an enforcement officer can cite, and then a court could adjudicate.
I think at this point, I should probably have a conversation with the town manager to discuss this ordinance going in the general ordinance and enforcement, and then I can report back next month.
I was,
Yeah, and my concern with that is obviously there is an outdoor lighting ordinance in your zoning ordinance now, so. In terms of the planning board's function and able to give recommendations, I don't really see a prohibition on you giving a recommendation to the council for additional ordinance, but that certainly wouldn't be within your generally recognized purview. Unless you were specifically offering a recommendation to amend the zoning ordinance. Otherwise, it would be up to the council to kind of pick it up and run with it. Again, no prohibition, just a little different. My concern would be that if you do have an outdoor lighting ordinance in the zoning ordinance now, so there could be some, I guess, not overt concerns, but a little bit of a concern if you were trying to. Well, they certainly can't conflict, so you'd have to probably delete the text under 512 of the zoning ordinance to make a reference, or maybe incorporate one in the general ordinance. I'm usually of the opinion, don't upset the apple cart if you don't have to. So unless there's a really good reason to put it in the general ordinances, if it's functioning in your zoning ordinance, I don't see a reason why you wouldn't keep it there. And then it would also give the planning board, zoning official, zoning board a little bit more of at least the impression of authority to enforce it, discuss it, and especially with applications that are coming before you. That can get a little dicey when you're trying to talk to an applicant about an ordinance that doesn't squarely fit under the zoning ordinance or your subdivision reg. So just food for thought. Happy to adjust in any way you want to go.
Well, I know that I thought this was initially going in the zoning ordinance, and that's how I've had it listed on the agenda. And then maybe a meeting or two ago, I think Allison wrote some of the language for initially. So you guys were talking about it going in the general ordinance. And I remember I was surprised because I didn't know that's what we're.
I think the big issue is the bottom of page 1 of the draft.
Mhm.
So it'd be C2B, where it says insert date at the end of that.
What was that, C2?
We couldn't hear
Yeah,
you.
C2B at the bottom of page 1.
Got it.
So it says insert date, right? So what we talked about the last meeting is you can't really under zoning require someone to come into compliance. So to Karen's point, the other option I think is kind of taking out that language there.
Well, right, zoning, as you know, you're right, would function more along the line of anything that currently exists would be legal existing non-conforming, anything going forward would have to comply with the understanding that most people who do read the ordinance do try to seek to comply with it. So they would read it, see what the town prefers if they're non-conforming or, you know, is required going forward and try to comply with it. But yes, that's a good point.
And
I
then
also,
on the enforcement side, I think this is something to think about is I don't know that the zoning official has to be the enforcement for all of it, but you have to think about who might be going out at night to measure this stuff if it's not the police.
and also I couldn't find if what will trigger such officer to come out. In other words, I was left under the impression that they would only come out if somebody filed a complaint.
That's generally the case, yeah.
So if nobody complains, we can break the law.
Yeah, I think
Well, not necessarily. I mean, the police would have the opportunity to sit if they saw something, but you can't expect them to drive around and just look at, you know, lighting issues. They would have the option. General practice, it's response to a complaint.
Mhm.
So in Newport, they actually have zoning enforcement officials who work evenings in the summer because noise from parties is a big issue, and that's enforced through the zoning ordinance.
Jen, how do you feel about that?
No comment.
Okay.
But I do think you probably need to kind of talk about this again next month, because now you have an entire lighting section, outdoor lighting section of 512 in the zoning ordinance. Now this language is, if it's not going in the general ordinance, now you have a lot going on. So maybe you need to revisit it.
So
Okay,
I think that was a great suggestion to talk with, you know, maybe talk with the town manager, see what the preference is.
Okay, I can do
For,
that.
for
Yeah.
bulking up the general ordinance. If there isn't, then I think we're back to just amending the zoning ordinance itself. If there is, we'll figure it out and we'll work to do that.
Or you can remove everything from the zoning ordinance, but I think you guys might want to look at that and make sure that that's the direction that you would like to go in.
so why don't we have you
I'll
talk
talk
to
to
the
the
town manager and then we'll work from there, because what she says may influence which way we're going to go.
Okay.
So I'll put this back on the agenda for next month. Is
All right.
that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Okay.
yes.
Okay, we'll do that. Okay, zoning ordinance, define uses in the list of prohibited uses that the ordinance does not offer a definition of. And we have a number of pages here on general prohibitions. You want to go through some of them and look at them? I don't think we want to have enough time to do all of this. Or are there ones that you are particularly concerned about? My suggestion is we go through each one of them very quickly and see if we're happy with the definition, if we want anything changed or added. Comments?
I'm happy to walk you through. There's no one that I am particularly concerned about. As you know, the general idea was that it was discussed and identified that several of the uses that were prohibited under section 111 general prohibitions did not have definitions. So we simply went through the zoning ordinance and your other ordinances to see if there were definitions where maybe it was questionable. And you'll see from the text at the end of each, so you've got the section 111 general prohibitions in its entirety in the papers in front of you. And then at the bottom of each item is a note whether there was an existing definition. If there was an existing definition, we copied and brought it in so you could read it. If there was no definition, we made a note of that. So you'll see that, for example, in item 1, we found no definition of motor vehicle in the zoning ordinance, but then goes on to say, hey, we did find one in the town code, and this is what it says. Where we couldn't find one in the zoning ordinance or the town code, we did craft one, and that should be noted for you. So that's how the document is set up. I would suggest, to the chair's point, going through and just letting me know if you have any questions, or certainly if you want to adopt any of the proposed definitions that were not otherwise included in the zoning ordinance up to date.
So why don't we start with say page 1 and see how long this takes us. I think some of this will have to go over until next month.
Either that, or we could make this our homework for next month and come with specific questions and suggestions.
Yeah, I agree with social.
There's a lot of stuff here.
There is a lot of stuff there. I will say, as you get into it, it does get a little easier, but it's a lot at first, especially when you're trying to figure out how the document is set up.
Okay. So would you like to roll this over until next month?
Yeah, but come prepared with.
Yes, I agree.
Okay. Mark's smart, he left. Okay,
Homework.
marking this, come through with questions or comments. I did read through this. It's overwhelming, so maybe break it down into a couple of pages at a time
Okay.
and be a little less overwhelming that way. Nothing jumped out and hit me as being way out of line. So I don't think we're going to have problems with it, but I do think
Yeah.
that we'll take a look at it and we'll mark it for March.
Yeah, plus it'll give our other 2 members time to look at it.
Yep, absolutely. Okay.
I'm glad to hear
We'll
it.
do that for March. All right. For the next thing, election of officers.
Really?
Yeah, you do that every year, so.
We do it every year, so
One could just nominate, typically someone makes a motion to nominate the chair, someone then second vote.
No.
And then we also did speak with Gail if she was, and asked if she was willing to stay on as vice chair, and she said yes. So that's up to you, though. You have to make the motion.
yeah, I will stay on chair for one more year.
Sitting up.
If you would like me to, if you would not like me to, then well, then somebody needs to make a motion. I don't think I want to nominate myself. That doesn't sound good.
Who's good at this?
Well, I can make a motion that we, is it elect?
Nominate.
Nominate?
You could say nominate Margie
make a
Cummings
motion that
as
we
chair of the planning board.
Nominate Margie Cummings as chair of the planning board.
Second.
Okay, any further comments or questions?
Thank you.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Last
And-
time I nominated you, I named you Claire, remember?
Yes, I do. And I thought that was funny. I liked it.
So I stayed off.
And I'd like to make a motion to nominate Gail Ballard Hall as vice chair. And I have talked to her and she is willing to do it.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. All right, thank you guys very much.
Yeah.
And last thing we have to do is the approval of minutes for last month.
Thank you.
Well, this is a great board to work with because you all come prepared and you all have very good ideas. I'll make a motion that the minutes for Wednesday, January 8th 2025 be approved.
Second.
Okay, any questions, additions, corrections? Hearing none? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Minutes are approved. And I make a motion that the meeting be adjourned. Thanks. Thank you guys very much.
I made this homework.
Yes, it's rather overwhelming.
My brain is fried.
Thank you, Kim, Karen, and Peter.
Thank you guys very much. Appreciate all the help. Look